The 10 News I-Team has uncovered a potentially dangerous situation lurking in a local community.
A toxic waste pile sitting near a school, a church, and a freeway used by hundreds of thousands of commuters. I-Team reporter Mitch Blocker learned state regulators have known about the pile for 9 years. The question is, why is it still sitting in the middle of the city?
These massive machines have a heavy appetite, and it was machines like this that led to our investigation into this recycling yard in National City. Bumpers, seats, and windows, everything reduced to hunks of scrap. The money is in what is pulled out of the recyclable metals, and what is left over is often toxic.
This is all what they call fluff. And in there you're going to find lead, zinc, and copper.
Gail Filter, executive director of San Diego Coastkeeper, can add PCBs and used oils to the list of hazardous materials at this National City recycling yard.
There's the school.
That's incoming Sky 10 video of the 500-student Kimball Elementary School. You can see the school here, just blocks from that recycling yard. We'd asked Filter, who's a former environmental prosecutor, to help us decipher what's on the yard at 1700 Cleveland Avenue. What worries Filter is the same thing that worries substitute history teacher Ted Gottschalk, the effect on children at Kimball Elementary and the effect on nearby Paradise Creek Educational Park.
Well, Pacific Steel, with their mounds of fluff, seeing their soil blow up into the air and blow across the community, across the school, and deposit across, people's cars, houses, and ultimately the creek itself.
As Sky 10 hovered over Pacific Steel, the car shredder is now gone. Left behind are hills of fluff, or mounds of debris covered by these blue tarps. On this mound, the cover flaps in the offshore wind. When we follow the winds off the bay, we see what worried the history teacher and what concerns Filter. Within 1/10 to 1/2 mile of Pacific Steel's yard, there's the heavily traveled Interstate 5. There's homes, there's businesses, there's this church and Kimball Elementary.
The harmful materials in the piles contain toxic metals that, when airborne, can be breathed in by children.
Jill Witkowski runs San Diego Coastkeeper's legal clinic. She too is worried over what we found.
So all this eventually goes into San Diego Bay.
Right.
What's hard to understand is what happened to the state agency that's supposed to protect the environment. We found that agency knew Pacific Steel was a problem 9 years ago, back in 2002. It was then the California Department of Toxic Substance Control accused Pacific Steel of imminent and substantial endangerment. The state wanted the piles of debris covered. That's when Pacific Steel tossed these blue tarps over the fluff. Then the state ordered the hazardous waste removed. But it's still here.
There's absolutely no evidence that any of that stuff has ever been moved off the site.
And here it sits.
And here it sits, the same piles they were talking about in 2002.
As we walked the perimeter, we found water running off the property.
We think there are harmful pollutants coming off of this property and impacting our environment.
The owners of Pacific Steel can't be found at their National City offices. We found they're not even in the country.
Our investigation led us about 20 miles south of the border, right here to Mexicali, Mexico, the home site of Pacific Steel's parent company.
This Mexicali mill makes steel. According to documents signed by its chief financial officer, the company is thinking about finally moving all the waste in National City here. In letters to the state of California, the Mexican company rejects claims of wrongdoing and has asked why state inspectors have been on the site numerous times but never indicated a concern. We wanted to ask the Department of Toxic Substance Control why 9 years after they called this place a hazard, it still appears to be one. But the state says no one can talk because an active enforcement investigation prevents it.
What happened?
There was a breakdown in the enforcement system, there was a breakdown in the regulatory system, and to the people who live in this community, they got the short end of the stick.
Now, Pacific Steel's attorney tells us the company has been processing soil for years inside of a building on the property, but admits tons of toxic material is still in the yard. Now, we just learned as of 2 days ago they started moving some of that material out of National City, but it was just one truckload.
Do we know if people that live near this plant have become sick?
We have been told from some of the folks that we talked to during the story that there were some concerns of asthma, but very simply, there's just not specific enough health information to pinpoint the people around Pacific Steel and see if they had any specific health problems.
Okay. All right, Mitch, thank you. For years, South Bay residents, school children, and businesses have been living and working near tons of hazardous material.
That material is on Cleveland Avenue in National City, just a few blocks from an elementary school. But after the 10 News I-Team put the spotlight on the problem and the lack of oversight, things have started to change at Pacific Steel Recycling. Reporter Mitch Blocker has the results.
High above Pacific Steel Recycling in National City, things are starting to happen.
Are you satisfied with the resolution? Are you satisfied with the solution?
I'm satisfied that there's a solution that is actually being implemented now.
Supervisor Greg Cox took immediate action after seeing our investigation exposing hazardous materials like lead, zinc, copper, and PCBs behind Pacific Steel's gates. Action is not something this place has been known for. Newspaper headlines detail the history of a recycling yard plagued by problems, including fires lasting for days, where shredders like this one rip apart cars and leave behind potentially hazardous materials. We found California's Department of Toxic Substance Control knew about the problem since 2002 and ordered cleanup to begin 9 years ago. Fast forward to November 17th of this year when our first investigation aired.
10 News I-Team has uncovered a potentially dangerous situation.
And then 7 days later, on the 24th, when the state again ordered Pacific Steel to begin cleaning up immediately. They demanded Pacific Steel set up a schedule for the removal of the hazardous waste. And now, after years of delays, the cleanup has begun.
I think Channel 10 deserves credit for focusing some attention on this item, and we immediately started following up on it, and I think we're very satisfied with the state is paying attention to it.
The Department of Toxic Substance Control told the supervisor they've always monitored Pacific Steel, but no outward changes were visible until now. From Sky 10, we watched a truck being loaded with hazardous waste.
It could take a while to clean this place up. We're talking about more than 16 million pounds of hazardous material. Right now they're offloading 2 truckloads a day, 5 days a week. The projections are that it could take more than 2 years to clean up Pacific Steel.
The truckload will go to a steel mill in Mexicali to be incinerated. The mill and Pacific Steel are owned by the same Mexican company. At this point, we're still wondering why the state did not want to answer our questions on camera. They told us at the time it was because they were still investigating the problem.
Do you think there was a cover-up here? Do you think somebody dropped the ball and they just didn't want to talk about it?
You know, I'm not sure that there was a cover-up. I just think that, you know, we all know how screwed up the state of California is and the finances that they're dealing with. I think certainly the public interests from Channel 10 and others, I think, has at least brought this to the top of the pile on their desk, and it's being addressed.
It's hot under the spotlight.
Well, you know, sometimes you got to turn up the heat a little bit.
The spotlight hasn't changed Pacific Steel's story. Their lawyer continues telling us the same thing, that his client has always done what regulators have asked, and if there ever were any issues, it was not Pacific Steel's fault.
Mitch, you mentioned more than 2 years to clean up Pacific Steel.
Yeah.
That seems like a long time.
It does, right? And the state of California, the point is they have known about this for 9 years. That's one of the reasons environmental groups like San Diego Coastkeeper have been screaming from the rooftops about this for years, and it's just now being addressed.
Well, I know you're going to keep your eyes on this, Mitch.
We absolutely will, yeah.
Thank you so much.